obviously believe in this initiative. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten involved.
Well, I mean, it goes beyond belief. It is necessary. I mean, we're talking about kids' lives here, their safety in schools, as well as, importantly, I mean, creating environments where we educate them and bring them up in dignity. So it's not, it goes beyond actually the whole essence of getting them to do mathematics and languages, to actually bring up, young people in comfortable, safe environments.
I'm sure a lot of people would agree with you on the importance of this particular project, but this is perhaps where some people will differ with you. One, the fact that several times the government has had to be forced by courts of law to even provide information about the extent of the problem. Secondly, the fact that some municipalities have to return money back to the fiscus unspent, yet this backlog continues. And then thirdly, the fact that there seems to be no actual coordination within and among government agencies that should be involved in the provision of these facilities. And those three reasons alone could be enough to put some people off, notwithstanding the importance of the project itself.
Well, absolutely. And I think this, government concedes, and in fact, the way the president has put it, he has spent some time talking about, delayed, services and delayed, services and so on and so forth. That's precisely the reason why organizations such as the National Education Collaboration Trust were set up to bring government, private sector, labor, and civil society together and establish a mechanism through which they can work to address, serious problems like this in society. So I think there's an acknowledgement that, the backlog is there, and the backlog has been there for a number of years. But I think we also have to consider that some progress has been made, and I think we considered to coming in to assist because data was presented to us and a plea was made to us, which we passed on to South Africa, incorporated, if you like, by government. They've indicated to us that, 2,100 sites are busy receiving attention through government, programs, and the balance of that's the difference between 3,898 and the 2,100. They request support. So that's where we come in. We concede this is a problem, but the approach that the NECT takes is that we got to think of schools beyond the notion of state schools, right? These are public schools. In fact, they should be community schools. So take, for instance, some of the toilets that are unused, and there are toilets that have been built. Some of these, us as communities in the immediate vicinity of the schools, could come up with plans to demolish those, so that our kids are safer in schools and so on. And that's the approach we take. We're going out to the civil society, to government, to private sector, and we're saying, can we work together to fast-track the process of addressing these backlogs?
What sort of mechanisms are you then going to put in place to make sure that, one, you do not inherit some of the malpractices one sees in the private sector? Yes, I get your point that as communities we should actually be leading the charge, but the fact of the matter is that government entities do get money from the national fiscus to actually deal with these problems. So how are you going to ensure that you do not inherit their problems as well as the culture that seems to be prevalent? And one reason I'm asking this is also because often we have seen in situations like the one we are in, where there are new people in charge, there is a great deal of trust and people wishing the government to actually do well and interested in actually supporting that. But some corporates won't mind throwing money at the problem if that's what it means to be in the good books of government, even though it may be a loss to the shareholders or whoever may have put that money forward. So how are you going to strike that important balance?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things to put out clearly. We are not government. we're not taking the space of government. We're not taking the responsibility away from government. If anything, the start of the conversation, the NECT and its partners, face government in the eye and ask questions about what is being done within government, how is it going to be fast-tracked. So the efforts that we're bringing in are complementary, and in fact, this is a coalition of the willing. All these corporates that have pledged, additional, resources have paid their taxes. But I think they're seeing the moral, obligation and the importance to help government fast-track the process of, eradicating the, the backlog. So that's how we pitch into this, whole mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, one of the things that were raised by the president this morning is how some of the solutions that have been thrown around use up a lot of energy, are actually expensive to implement. I don't know whether you have done any work in that regard, just to look at the possibilities that exist out there and whether they are the sort of solutions that can be implemented here in South Africa locally, but also solutions that won't take up a great deal of money, given just how extensive the backlog is.
So the need here is quite significant. We're talking in the north of 1,000 schools that require attention. It's important that we work in speed, with some speed. So we have identified some tried and tested technologies, obviously utilizing the Department of Basic Education's technical capacity. We are in the process of getting additional capacity from outside government. We, in addition, have ring-fenced spaces where new technology can be tested. But I think we need to strike a balance between working with speed to address the need that's there, as well as creating avenues for new things to be tried and so on. So those who have new technologies, our doors are open. In fact, we've been very open at the launch today, inviting those who have new technologies to approach us. We will show them schools and avenues for them to test those technologies. And we will use this space to establish evidence on the usability of the technology, whether government and the schools can maintain those technologies, how much energy they take, and so on and so forth, so that by the end of this process we could have tangible evidence on some of these technologies and whether we can continue to use them in the system or not.
Any rural-specific ideas at the moment that have been thrown around? Because if you look at the extent of the backlog, it's mostly provinces like the Eastern Cape, like KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo that are most seriously affected. Yeah.
So I mean, there are a number of technologies. There's VIP technologies, which is essentially pit latrines, but they are ventilated and so on. So there's a range of that technology which can be used in any, given rural a school that doesn't have running water and so on and so forth. So there are those, that have been provided for as part of the plans.